Hello, and welcome to Resolve, an afterplay show. This is an after show for a role-playing game that does not have an actual play, where we tell you all the details of our game so you don't have to listen to it. Hi, I'm Sammie. I'll be your host. My pronouns are she, her, and I play Isiri Imoli, the deep-sea mermaid. Pronouns are also she, her. Joining me is my wonderful co-host, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex. I play Moogle Avatar of Alexander Smog. Both of us use he, him pronouns.
We are joined today by Carolyn.
Hello, I'm Carolyn. I play the miniature horse who is not a unicorn, Poni. I use she, her pronouns, and Poni also uses she, hers.
We are also joined by Zach.
Hi, I'm Zach. I use he, him pronouns, and I play Tao, the digital dragon who uses they, them.
All right, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Now that we're all here, Alex, why don't you tell us about the actual play?
Previously, in EFFETE, the party speaks with medics and Aura. Aura explains that the party has been gone 5 months, and Samoensu, including Silky Weaver, have begun communicating with Sequence Charter. Aura leads the party through a portal to Terra, in the middle of a beach training exercise. Terra informs the party of 2 new options to test in the field, possibly finicky communications or a timed portal for wherever they are back to Sequence Charter. Through another portal, to Terra's office, Isiri and Terra speak about responsibilities, power, and Terra's world-hopping experience. Terra has some otherworldly furniture and sketches of obviously otherworldly people. Smog teaches Poni the way of the Onion Knight, helping her construct a psychoglass blade and tutoring her in more magic. Tao takes Geyser, still a clam in a bucket, to a karaoke bar and performs. Geyser takes the opportunity to toy with the pilot again, blowing out his eardrum and healing him with magic. Poni and Smog visit Aura to explain more about Juice and Athenos' disappearances. Aura gives Smog a chronometer to understand how time behaves around him, and perhaps explain why Smog forgot Tao. Smog explains that his changed physical appearance is largely due to a failed cast of Cetaflare from a hastily repaired rig.
Alright, so now that you've heard the actual play, let's do a deep dive into this session. We're back on Sequence Charter, guys, after long last, apparently.
Back to Sequence Charter after experiencing the heat death of a universe, which apparently takes about 150 days or so across dimensions.
Give or take. Yeah, people seem pretty concerned that we were gone for so long. They thought we were dead.
I mean, they weren't wrong, but we got better, so it's all good.
Yeah, when we were going through the new age, I didn't really think about the fact that that time still counted. Because we fast-forwarded through it, even with the time dilation. That was a decent chunk of time that we were away.
One of the things I was thinking about during this time, has the excitement for us died down on Sequence Charter? We came back and Terra's worried, Aura's worried, the medical team, etc. But it seems like things have settled. It's just how the air feels.
I mean, the excitement might have died down a bit, but now we're back from what a lot of people probably assumed was death. We're ready to make a big splash again. Tao going out to make their reappearance out in public at a karaoke bar.
Yeah, my thought for it being a little too quiet was, I need to give them more little tasks to deal with.
Yeah.
Figure out what the hell went wrong with me.
I think you know the answer to that. Let's be real. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. We come back, we get checked up by the medical team. Aura looks very, very concerned for us and leads us to Terra, who is a badass, as usual.
I also love that in that scene, like, half of the party was freaking out about the alarm, and then Smog was just like, can somebody help me move this very heavy equipment?
No.
Absolutely not. We got the camera back in place, I should say. I don't know what we're going to do for recording things when we go along next time. Maybe Tao will make a better videographer or something.
Ooh, maybe.
Oh, they could use their phone and just be like...
That's what I was thinking.
Recording like a TikTok the entire time.
Oh my god.
Hell yeah.
Tao would do numbers on TikTok.
Tao would absolutely do numbers on TikTok.
A TikTokumentary.
I don't like that. Also, I think we neglected to mention this in last week's episode, but Geyser is a clam, and they still are a clam now.
Yeah, that happened like right before we came back, right?
Yeah.
When we were all in the underwater space with Forsythia. Geyser turned herself into a clam and just didn't feel like changing back.
To be fair to me, last week, I didn't think Geyser would still be a clam this week. And then there was also a hell of a lot going on. Plus, we had Dan on to explain the entire world we just gone through. So we might not have got around to it.
The clam got lost in the wash, as it were.
I mean, to be fair, Geyser seems very happy as a clam, so why not?
She certainly is happy as a clam.
Oh my god.
Thank you.
You know, we did talk at one point. We were like, what would all of these more animal-like characters appear like as humans? And then we were like, oh wait, we have to figure out a persona for Geyser. And I think we said something like clownfish. And it's like, at least we were aquatic. We were close.
Yeah, we're in the ballpark. That did not ease our transition back into the endearing eye of Sequence Charter, because Tara's like, why the hell is Geyser a clam? Where the hell is a Thanos? What the hell happened to you, Smog?
They assumed we were all dead, and then half the party comes back looking completely different. Well, two of us come back completely different. One is not coming back anytime soon.
Yeah, he met his boyfriend in the circus, and they decided to go off together.
Oh, I always love my circus boyfriend. I just enjoyed that beach scene with Tara. It expressed the power that they have both physically and mentally, but also it showed a lot of cracks in that armor as well, because it's very clear that she's stressed the hell out, reconsidering a lot of the ideas that she had for this entire project.
I also tried to nudge Poni, like, go get them as a teacher. You need to do some more Psychoglass stuff. And then Isiri was like, we needed to have a big talk.
Yeah.
So that did not happen.
My apologies.
It's okay. I'm sure there's time.
There's still time for it to happen. We're still in the same realm. Yeah, but instead of having Tara as a teacher for a session, Poni decided to ask Smog for a little more help with Psychoglass, and then one thing led to another, and then bam! Magic sword.
Honestly, that was super cool. What is the mount in Dragon Age Inquisition that has, like, the sword through their head?
I can't remember for the life of me.
Immediately what popped into my head, I was like, oh my god, that's so cool.
See, because we were talking about Onion Knight, I was imagining Poni in the hat and cape for the Onion Knight.
I was just imagining her holding the sword in her mouth, like sideways.
Nope.
Yeah, you did say it was like a horn, but
right.
I'm thinking into the future. Like, what if we just dressed Poni up as an Onion Knight, gave her the little poofs around the feet, maybe?
My sword, it was a long sword, and it came out of my forehead like a unicorn's horn, but an entire ass sword. I went Zacian, like the dog from last Pokemon Gen. Instead of holding the sword in my mouth, it was like right on my head.
Nice.
I think of it like Tales games accessories where the physics do not obey anything. Like the body might have some physics, but it just goes along with whatever it's attached on the body.
That's pretty good.
So just a full sword balancing by the pommel stuck to your head.
The pommel being an onion.
Oh my god. You're so right.
Because ponies have layers.
That's true. Poni is such like a deep and interesting character. Very happy to see how they're like growing and developing over the course of the game so far.
Oh, thank you. She had a bit of a moment when she realized she was not a unicorn, and she's trying to bounce back a bit, but maybe she's like, but maybe I am, because she did make the sword come out of her head.
Maybe instead of me become unicorn, I make unicorn me.
Yes.
Poni redefines unicorn.
You just fake it till you make it. Poni literally just made it. Tao, in the meanwhile, went off to jam at a karaoke bar that they have no context for the cultural impact of the songs there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That was so funny.
I'm sure Tao could pick up on the mood of a song, but they're not going to know what the Frank Sinatra of this world is.
Just half expecting you to like put your hand into or on the machine and just upload all of the data from the songs.
I did that after I did a song I didn't know. I hacked in and sang a song I did know.
That's where we get the title.
At least get some cool album art.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's just the art that we used for Taz's introduction.
You're right.
For sure.
It's interesting that you decided to do a song from Sequence Charter and then a song that had already been made for Tao, because I think we talked a little bit earlier about Tao having never made any of their own music. Is that something that's more on their mind, especially now that they're performing again at this karaoke bar?
I don't think it particularly is in terms of music, although with the talk of new worlds back in the World of Ages, that's more on Tao's mind than necessarily making new music. Yeah, I don't know if that's particularly something that they feel a need to do. They've always been a singer of other people's songs. They haven't made their own songs in the past. They might be able to, but I don't know if they feel that urge at the moment.
Maybe that's something that will come together more as they think about forming their paradise.
Yeah, possibly.
Because it is certainly interesting that you're trying to make a perfect world when, in theory, Tao couldn't even make a perfect song if they wanted to right now.
Ooh, ouch.
I didn't mean that to be that harsh.
Both require some good harmony.
That's true.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, in general, when I said Tao's doing karaoke, I wasn't really thinking of what would be a good moment to move the story forward. It was just like, we're back. What's Tao want to do?
That's fair.
Tao wants to go sing some karaoke.
I think you heard Smog be like, I'm hungry, and you were like, oh, Tao's probably hungry too.
Yeah, it was a little bit of that, especially since there was a total of one person in the previous world, not really a crowd to perform for. Tao's feeling a bit hungry for that, and also just other people were off doing important things, talking to people, training. Tao's just going off on their own, almost on their own. Still brought along Geyser in a bucket.
Who causes chaos as they are a clam, even restricted by that form.
Poor unsuspecting Strider pilot, always the victim of Geyser's whims.
You gotta break their eardrum and then immediately heal it back to normal. So it's just like, ah!
I think they're one more terrifying interaction away from getting a real name.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like how D has them in their links list as 21 pilots.
Yeah. It was just, there's a bunch of pilots here. Might as well say 21.
That'd be really funny, because I don't know that we've heard anyone pick up on the idea of surnames in here yet. But if this person was like, I don't know, I just really like the number 21, and I'm a pilot, so my surname would be Pilots. 21 Pilots.
Well, that would be really funny, although I would push back on the number thing, because they did just break free of being numbered.
Right. There is
That's
that.
fair. Maybe their previous name was 21 and their new name is Pilots.
You're right.
Oh.
I know this was Dan just being in character, but I can't get over Tara being like, Geyser is a clam, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, we had to have a discussion about, like, I think Sammie just she was like, how did that make it over? It was like, I mean, maybe that's just what they found. There's enough references in the little bits of material they have.
It could just be meaningless. It's like the entirety of the relationship to Christ as a religious figure has just gone, and it's just like an expletive. It's just a word now. But we're like 2,000 years in the future or something.
And very separated from Earth.
Yeah.
Purposefully, like everybody has lost their culture. You know, these were just some Christian aliens.
Can you imagine? You get abducted, it's like, hey, have you heard of the Church of Jesus Christ?
Oh, no. So what did we land on for the thing that we were going to test out from Terra? Because they offered us either communications that might be spotty or a timed portal that'll come out to us so that we can get back to Sequence Charter, wherever we are in a world. And I remember we settled on something, but I don't know what it was.
I believe we settled on the timed portal back.
Right, I think so too. It was more of a, we'll test that out, not really caring about which one it was. as far as I could tell.
From a series point of view, it would be better to be unexpectedly pulled out to know that's coming, rather than have to try to test faulty and unreliable communication system, because then there's more room for misinterpretation of what's going on.
I remember Smog's suggestion was we could dump the communicator for Valentine to use so that there could be any communication established between the World of the Lost and Sequence Charter. But all I remembered after that was people agreeing, and I was like, that doesn't sound right. It doesn't seem like something everyone would want.
I also question if it would work at all.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, it's already hard going between worlds, but then also to get something out of the World of the Lost, I don't know.
Poni wasn't so much into communicating with the people back at home base, but she would be okay saying hi to Valentine again, so that's why she said yes.
Okay, maybe we'll have to check with Dan then, because I don't know that conversation ended in a way that made sense to me.
Yeah, we could definitely confirm. It sounded pretty split, though, so it sounded like we both have reasons for both items. I'm sure if we asked, we could change our answer too.
Yeah, we can retcon it.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't gone through yet, so there's time to change.
Yeah, we can just ask for the other one if we want to try out the other one instead. Doesn't even need to be a retcon or anything, just to change your minds.
You know what, Aura, I would like to try the other option, please. Thank you.
Mm.
Well, you have your team just working in there already.
Yeah.
We should probably talk about like the first half of, well, probably the whole conversation at this point, because I think we've covered pretty much everything else up to the second part of the conversation, but I'm going to go through it because it's so dense.
I can be dense.
How did you manage to flip just a qualitative assessment into a self-own?
It's a gift. That was a long conversation, wasn't it?
I guess it's important to say first that we see signs of the previous game that I ran for you and Dan.
Right. Definitely saw some stuff that looked like Easter eggs for those of y'all that were in that game.
I was not. Can you give me a hint to the Easter egg, or is it something I should find out later?
We will give you the rundown here and now. Daniel is a connoisseur of continuity, and he knows he can snooker me into doing anything in a roleplay setting if he has continuity. So this is leaning into both of our favorite things. But during Alex's campaign, there were several items and artifacts that we retrieved through the gacha machine going through from Tony.
I might have to explain that. I took 3 groups through a very similar version of this game. And after they came back from a world into their little arcade, or the indie alley for Zach's game, the GM character / collectible that they had to find in every world would build them a gashapon machine. And it worked off of their bonds to people from their own worlds that they'd met along the way. So it was like an otherworldly gashapon machine. Basically, it got charged up by them coming back into their hub world. They got to each take a turn at it, and it would give them something that someone else wanted them to have. Basically, a rolled on a random item generator, and everybody got something. There's just not a lot of items within Interstitial to begin with, so I thought, like, we need a little narrative putty to play with. So I'll give people random things. A lot of it ended up just being sentimental, but some of it was actually used throughout the game, which I thought was fun.
Yeah, and one of them was the coffee table with the magazines and the couch as like a lounge thing. So that's what Tara has on the side of the room.
I should also explain, at the end of the game, when they all came back to their own realities, because basically they had been digitized, is the easiest way to think about it. They each retained something that they got from the Gasha Bond, and that is what Tara chose to retain. Or, well, that's what Dan chose to retain as the player, I should say.
We could get into a debate about how that works.
There were also the canvases.
Yeah, there's the canvases. So those are obviously drawings of the other player characters to the best of Tara's memories. There's the charm bracelet as well that Tara wears, is also constructed in honor of that entire experience. And Tara themselves isn't quite 100% certain. They seem to think it was a dream or a vision or some out-of-body experience in some way, because they're convinced that they physically haven't left the world in the same way we have.
It's just true. That just means that Tara's very astute, or remembered exactly what was explained at the end. Terra physically did not travel anywhere.
That's true.
Okay.
Their experiences got shunted out of a server and into them.
Yep, because I ripped a hole in cyberspace.
Yep.
So they feel like they've experienced something, but they haven't actually experienced it.
In a sense, if you think that the interactions they had in the server were fake, they experienced them digitally. We'll be judicious about it.
Yeah, it's like you uploaded a save state of your mental space right now into the server, and then from there it got to interact with all of the simulation stuff.
Okay, that makes sense.
Their body didn't do anything, but their mind.
They thought about it, so it's real enough. I think that counts.
And Zach's game took place after the other games, so it was basically building upon that technology to let people have that experience in a hopefully better way, but got messed up.
So Isiri is just like pilfering through Terra's things while Terra is sitting right there.
Wonderful.
To be fair, she doesn't have things, really.
Yeah, we've established that Isiri is a communist and has very little concept of personal property.
Isiri is not a communist. There's no money. There's no economy.
So a utopia, then?
She can't read, guys. You really expect her to understand the deeper manifestations? Oh.
It's a hunter-gatherer society.
Yes. Correct. Except there's very little gathering, mostly just hunting.
Yeah.
I like how Dan was just like, this is like bring your fish to work day.
Except if you had, I don't know, a fucking dolphin or a killer whale in a giant tank with you.
10-foot-long creature getting slime all over your touch pads.
No.
Except other people wanted to visit Terra in the office.
It was mostly just employees, right?
So the office, we should say, was on the airship. So other airship crew, maybe other people who are politically important. Yeah,
because that's the one thing Dan said while they were on the good ship Paradigm, was that Isiri immediately got the sense that Terra has a lot of influence, but it's not an absolute command. It was probably some discussion where Terra didn't get their way, vice versa, that sort of thing. So it is interesting to see how developed this post-freedom culture is, especially so close after being, what's the word I'm looking for?
Emancipated?
Yes, emancipated.
I forgot it was the end of the Paradigm, and now I'm wondering if that name was influenced by me giving Dan a bunch of Final Fantasy 13 stuff to look at. One of the core mechanics of that game, where you basically change your class in the middle of battle, but as an entire party, is called the Paradigm Shift.
Well, a paradigm shift is a big scientific concept as well, so I'm sure he's pulling from like sci-fi, and there might be that as well, so I bet he's pulling his strings from different places. It's a cool ship, though, although I've only been in one room.
Everybody's seen it, at least.
I appreciate how quickly both Isiri and Terra got into discussion about what is wrong with both of them. It was like a very impromptu therapy session, which apparently both of them needed. Went into this session knowing I wanted to have like a one-on-one talk with Terra, but I didn't expect it to be reciprocated in that same fashion, with Terra being just as upset and concerned with their limitations of power that Isiri is.
I think part of that's because, yes, you and I know Terra as a character from before this, but Dan did a really good job of giving her a ton of distance so that they feel like a new character to us in the same way that they might feel like a new character to the other players.
Yeah.
And that makes it easier to role play not actually knowing them.
Because a lot happens in 30 years in post-war, clearly. But we discovered that Terra has been kind of the helm behind the world traveling process, although kind of indirectly, because obviously, as she stated, if she told everybody about her crazy vision dream, then people would condemn her to the madhouse, because who the hell would believe that?
Yeah, there is that.
Sad.
It's kind of an insane dream, but Aura made it work. Aura was the only person that she told this to.
Yeah, there's so much masking going on with Terra. In her original story, it's supposed to be a sort of more compliant, robotic nature, and that seems to have transformed outwardly into being a little more bulky and menacing and rugged. But at the inside, there's still someone who has a desire for like artistic creation. And if you speak with her long enough, it's easy to understand that and easy to understand what weighs on them.
Yeah, because it's very clear to Isiri, who has the added benefit of being able to sense electricity, that Terra is overexerting themselves in multiple facets. And there was one point where they were talking earlier where Isiri's just like, but your body, you're not okay. And then Terra's like, what about my body? I think both of them got at least some answer that they were looking for there. And that was a very fun interaction between me and Dan, and I'm very happy that I had it. It just shows how much guilt that she has over putting people in certain precarious situations.
Yeah, I found it interesting that Tara was talking about feeling guilty about sending us through and wondering about should she have gone herself instead.
But more importantly, that she can't, as we've discovered. They tried to follow us, and it wouldn't work.
That reminded me of, I think, our second or third session when Smog tried to open a portal between worlds, and while we were in the space between, all of our crew could see what was happening, but no one else did, none of the scientists with us.
Yeah, it might just not be possible until we find the world cores to link things.
Needs to stabilize.
Ooh, here's maybe a tricky wrinkle. What if the reason we're able to travel between things is because we are also from the configuration, but we have somehow like stabilized our memories based on some one interpretation of us?
So all of us are actually from the same world?
Not exactly. We are all versions of ourselves in some way, but we've settled in one of them so that we don't, rend our minds.
That Eldritch madness. It could be. I definitely wouldn't discount it. But at the same time, I do think it's more interesting that, like Isiri is assuming right now, that all of us were pulled for a particular purpose. We just don't know why or how yet. I don't believe it was random. I mean, obviously it's not random because, the setting of the game aside and making everything for the players be accountable. But I don't think it was random that our characters were pulled by mistake. If it was a mistake, perhaps we were sent here.
Yeah, going back to the continuity you were talking about, in at least my version of the game, I assume in yours as well, there were some outer entities attempting to influence stuff that people were doing with world travel, and I'm wondering if that might be connected to that reason you're talking about for all of us coming together.
In those games, I sort of posed it as a question because throughout the 3 games, these entities keep on coming back, representing a more traditional idea of conservatism and liberalism. Like, are you going to accept change and move out farther into the world, or are you going to stay in the place where you already are and try to keep things the same? It's sort of the dichotomy of those 2 characters. By the end of Zach's game, the stand-in character I had was asking them, like, do you think this is a universal constant? Is that why it keeps appearing in our simulations that are trying to mimic reality? Or is this something that's wrong with how we're putting things together? So I'm interested to see if Dan is going to answer that question for us.
God. Interstitial at its core is a very simple game, and it's very well done. But you can play and build up so many larger esoteric concepts to explore just by the nature of this world-traveling structure. And you're right, we might be answering some large questions that we might be scared to face.
Something else that struck me about the Terra conversation was Isiri reiterating an unwillingness to accept the Abyss's power at first. And thinking more about, because we had the Isiri playlist episode recently, and I'm thinking more about the opposites interactions that Smog and Isiri have, because I'm thinking like Smog would be so happy with obtaining deific power, he would think, and then it happens. And I mean, we haven't got into it too much yet, but it's not like it's amazing and great and puppies and sunshine. And I think that there's space for the inverse to be true for Isiri. Like, she's worried about this thing that could actually be very good for her.
Yes, and that's exactly what I'm going for, because it is innate to her existence. This thing is, it's no question of whether she deserves it or not, because it is inherently a part of her, but it would forever change her life and perspective on who she is and how she interacts with people. And I think that's what she's more afraid of, because her sense of self has already been kind of So for her to risk losing that more is terrifying. And when you are your song and your identity and her culture, that's a lot. At the end of the day, it will be more solidified and better for her if she just gives in, but I don't think she's at that point yet. She's starting to get there. We had a moment where she like glitched out a little bit and leaked some ooze while talking to Tara. But she's not quite ready to take up the mantle yet. So that lab visit, though.
Carolyn kind of came to me with the scene about Poni being trained, says like, all right, what does Smog want to actually do now? It's like, okay, one of the few people he has a light link with in Sequence Charter is Aura, and we didn't actually get to break stuff down for anyone in detail. So it's like, all right, I'm going to go talk to Aura, explain exactly why people are missing and what's changed with Smog. And I also wanted to do that because I don't think Smog would be guarded about the changes, but especially seeing how negatively Isiri and Geyser have reacted to the change is not eager to immediately be like, and here are all of the exact circumstances that are somewhat horrifying.
Yeah, because if Isiri heard that and like immediately bouncing off what we just said about her, she'd be like, oh god, no. Please leave me alone.
You gotta pace it out.
It is a lot to take in at once. That was a very intense conversation.
Yeah, I can't remember if there was anything to, like, any big revelations in the first half of the conversation. We were mostly talking about why people are missing. We did have, like, a fun little back and forth with Poni and Smog, where Poni was like, I thought I went up with a friend, and I was like, oh, Poni, a lover. Let's make sure that Hercules gets his due.
Very true. Poni was trying to be a little bit coy because she wanted to respect Thanos' privacy and she didn't want anyone like asking too many questions. But, you know, Thanos also deserves to celebrate the fact that he has a hot boyfriend.
As a Thanos would want, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if Thanos is very subtle with most things.
No.
Yeah, we got to go more into the specifics. I think this is honestly about as much as Smog would remember, because he has to be without context for a lot of memories. Otherwise, he risks giving things away that the party needs to learn for themselves. And basically said, rig was kind of fucked up and I had to do field repairs on it, so who knows how well it was actually operating. And I tried to cast one of the most powerful spells in all of Final Fantasy, Zeta Flare. And it blew up, pieces of the crystal ended up in my body. Alexander is the only reason those stopped and stayed embedded instead of like going through me and killing both me and Juice. So now we know, canonically, that Donald Duck is more powerful than Smog.
There we go. That's all you needed to know.
Canonically, Donald Duck is still the strongest character in Final Fantasy. So.
Yeah, I couldn't upend that.
It's a terrifying prospect.
I gotta play more video games besides Pokemon, man.
There's a summon, usually one of the big endgame summons in Final Fantasy, called the Bahamut. Very large black dragon, usually has a non-elemental magic attack called Flare. There are sometimes improved versions of Bahamut that have Giga Flare. Donald Duck cast an even more powerful version called Zeta Flare.
Okay. Wow.
So Donald Duck, just an extreme powerhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Your average duck is more powerful than your average anthropomorphic rabbit.
I can see that. Ducks have a lot of rage. They're
That's
fighters.
true.
Howard the Duck can kick Roger Rabbit's ass.
Are you saying that Daffy Duck beats Bugs Bunny? Because I don't think that's the case most of the time.
No, because Bugs does not fight. He doesn't fight physical battles. He fights like mental battles. He uses his wits.
Bugs Bunny is a trickster god.
See, Smog should have used his wits instead of Zeta Flare.
I don't know. I haven't really thought much about what the occasion was that he needed to do that, but I'm kind of excited for maybe Dan and I to dance around it as we come along here, because Smog did get that little chronometer that might help Aura dig into the time weirdness and why Smog might not remember Tau.
I can't wait for the lecture on relativity that we're going to get. I was going to ask if you had anything in mind for the circumstances of that, but now knowing that you have no idea yet, I'm excited to see what you come up with.
Yeah, I'm excited to just like throw out bits of scaffolding that we get to build on more as I'm playing this version of Smog, and I feel like I've thrown out quite a bit now, and I'm just waiting to see what we toss up on it.
I know this was towards the end of the session, but Poni, you were there. You didn't say very much about it. How does Poni feel about finding out that Smog died?
If they had told us this before we went through the heat death of the universe, Poni would be a bit more concerned. But now that she's lived through her own death, she's like, oh, okay. He died and got better again. I guess he's like really powerful.
Yeah, I wanted to think about why would Smog just let Poni come along and hear this when he's really hesitant about everyone else? He's like, all right, it's that mastery relationship. It's that he's teaching Poni magic. And this is obviously something that was supposed to be sort of a warning for him. Like, if he doesn't do this in a timeline, he doesn't get himself and Juice killed or make Alexander come and have to save him. There are a bunch of timelines where that fails. That is the most common thing to happen. So we can frame it as teaching Poni, like, wait until you're ready to do magic. You don't have to push yourself to do the most powerful possible thing you think you can do.
Now, see, that would be the smart way to take it. What Poni could do is she could take it to mean like, oh, wow, my master tried to do this one really super powerful spell and failed. If I can cast that spell successfully, then I'll be the most super magical creature.
Oh, no.
Poni could be more powerful than Donald Duck.
Oh, no.
It would be a Shrek character to tear over.
I was about to say that. Although I do not want to see Poni just, like, charbroil herself.
Oh, I thought you were going to say eviscerate Donald Duck.
I'd love to see that. Put that right up front.
Yeah, Smog refers to that as the worst of it, sort of at the top of explaining it, or is like, that is the worst, right? And Smog says, well, it's what I remember. So, there's room for terrible things in everyone's future.
Great. Just what I wanted.
Mm-hmm. Such a vote of confidence.
It's the worst thing that's happened to him so far that he can remember. That's not exactly comforting, is it?
Smog isn't around to be comforting. He's around to be useful.
Is he? Okay.
He's helped Poni a lot.
That's true.
And if he gets something in return, then well, that's fine, isn't it?
Aura is going to look into, like, some of the solutions to this. Do you expect that there's going to be a solution for Smog, or if he can get better from this?
I don't know if Smog really considers it an issue so much as, like, a little trick. His ultimate goal is to get back home so that Alexander is back home with his information, and then, if he can, make amends with the people that he's wronged in his world. So part of the playbook change is giving Smog a reason to want to go home. But if that just means that there's somebody else along the way and he has even less perfect information than he thought he did, that might not be that much of an issue. But it's worth knowing, because Smog has this background in Magitech, which I figure you have to be a bit of a scientist to care about. And that's his relationship with Aura as a light, is understanding each other as very different types of practitioners. Because, Smog's a little more into magic, and Aura is all science. That's more why I wanted to do it, to represent that sort of relationship to knowledge than necessarily really viewing it as an issue. But if we do figure it out and there is something there, that'd be cool. I did tell Dan about this specific wrinkle I wanted to have from the start of choosing the playbook. So maybe he has something. Maybe something will crop up in Tao's advancement or someone else's that makes sense to fold into this.
Maybe, yeah. That tie specifically to not knowing about Tao makes me wonder if Dan's planning something behind the scenes to tie our stuff together. Because I'm not explicitly looking for tie-ins with Smog, but it definitely could happen. Or if it just ends up being like the way that our characters go, of bouncing off of each other like that based on that one bit of detail. I am kind of excited for Tao's next advancement because I have given it a lot of thought.
Oh, yeah. Like,
I'm still a couple levels away, but I've gone over with Dan what it might involve.
I see we've been plotting, we've been scheming. I have also been plotting and scheming with Dan about playbook changes.
That's the best way to play, is scheming with the DM.
Yeah. It's my favorite hobby, really.
It should be. I do want to say that Dex's absence was felt.
Yeah.
Things were a little less wild. There's this way that D and Dex and these characters specifically feed into each other in that sense that is going to be interesting to mold around again, like try to figure out how we incorporate Geyser's antics. Even as Smog in character, I might be like trying to push Geyser more towards the front of the group. You need to pick some decisions. If that is supposed to imply something about Geyser's future, that could be cool. I don't know. But I'm interested to figure out what's going on with Geyser now that Dennis is gone.
We lost one extreme, so now that other extreme either is going to shrink or get larger to fill the void.
Did we mention that when Poni stabbed Smog, it was a healing stab instead of a damaging stab? I thought that was interesting for her character. When she was trying to manifest this magic energy and conjure up a sword, Smog was there and he was like, okay, now come at me and try to stab me. Give it all you've got. And she's like, oh, okay. He told me that I can stab him. He must have some way to block. It's fine. I'll give it my all. And so she gave it her all. And she was assuming that it would cause damage, but they actually healed 1 health per person.
He was trying to direct her to use the drain spell, which is just you hurt somebody and you heal from it. And Poni got it half right.
I mean, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, healing somebody and healing from it is also pretty good.
That was what I was thinking. What if Poni goes from being one of the attackers and the barbarians and the fighters in the group to being one of the healers? That would be quite the status shift. I still don't know when Poni levels up. She's got a little bit left to go, but I'm not completely sold on what book I should do for her. So maybe since she can do that, that's something I can think about and incorporate.
Man, between Smog pushing non-lethal and Poni speccing into healing, we're just going to have long, drawn-out conversations in the middle of battle until we can wear them down.
And then Tao turns into a dragon and breathes fire.
Yeah.
We're not without combat characters. Isiri can fight, she just generally doesn't want to. That's not her first response.
That's also where Smog is at this point, for the most part. But we'll also, like, in combat, try to do things that are non-lethal.
What would have you all done differently, if you could have?
For me, I don't think I really would have done much differently with Tao. I think it was good to have a lighter tone interaction while Smog's giving all these details about how he died in almost every universe, and the series having this deep heart-to-heart with Tara. Tao's just doing some karaoke, having fun.
Which is important. We have been going 100 miles per hour for the last several sessions.
It's just my pace.
I don't know about that. Not very sustainable, Smog. How about you, Carolyn? What you done? Something else?
Maybe the kind of sword that Poni grew from her head would be bigger. Like, because my own sword, and because I said it, that's what I'm going with, just because that's the generic sword. But I'm thinking maybe a claymore or maybe even a Zweihander.
Ooh.
Just get Cloud's Buster Sword.
I was about to say the exact same thing. Just get a full-on Buster Sword.
Have a sword bigger than her, because it doesn't actually weigh anything to her, right?
Oh.
She could be more sword than horse.
I mean, in a Psycho Glass, you can form it to whatever you want.
That is true. That could be like her evolution form.
Ooh.
Smog's gonna have to teach you about slotting materia.
Oh no.
I did talk about, like, wanting to put Geyser forward a little bit more. Maybe I would have forcefully unclamified Geyser and been, like, following her around whatever she wanted to do.
Yeah. But can you really take away a clam's happiness? Is that a fair thing to do?
Always. There is no universe in which that is wrong.
I did say this in session, that if Tara wasn't going to really open up about whatever the hell's going on with all the weird shit in her office, I was going to have Isiri cast an illusion of the people from the paintings and just really mess that up royally, because social context just goes over her head. But I'm glad it didn't turn into that, because I feel like it would have been a very different conversation. Let's get into the resolution phase, the segment of the show where we each get to say something about the game with no responses. What is your final say on this session, Zach?
Tao thinks more of the group should have joined in for karaoke. You can find me online at Zach Defense on whichever social media I end up using.
What about you, Carolyn?
I think Smog should clarify with Poni that his whole little speech at the end with Aura was supposed to be a warning rather than an inspiration to do stronger magic.
What about you, Alex?
I've been cooking on what might be going on with Juice directly after the explosion, and maybe that will come up at some point soon. You can find me on Twitter at Shining Crowbat. This week, I recommend checking out the band Subradio. They are a DC-based pop group. They were my most listened to band last year. Very catchy lyrics. As far as like comparable, very big acts, I think Walk the Moon is very similar, especially their early stuff is more like the very introspective Walk the Moon stuff, and their newer stuff is the very poppy stuff. Like, what's their big one? Shut Up and Dance With Me is a vibe for a lot of the recent music. And I might bring more music coming up soon, because there's plenty of music I know of that I don't think will end in a Smog playlist. So plenty of stuff I could bring.
And for myself, I think that a big change is coming for all of us, and I'm excited to see it happen. You can find me up the side of the icy mountain hanging with the abominable snowman. This has been Resolve, an afterplay show. You can find us online at most social media sites at ResolveAP.
Except Instagram, which is at ResolveAfterPlay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. You can buy the game we're playing, Interstitial: Our Hearts Intertwined, from its creator Riley Hopkins at linksmithgames.com.
All links will be included in the episode description.
Thank you again for listening. We end our turn here, so now it's your turn. Tell us what's happening in your game.